Hi, I am Manoj and I welcome you to foodsafetyhelpline.com. It's a one-stop solution for all your FSSAI compliance needs. This is a video recording of the webinar on Introduction to Food Safety and Standards Act. The panel of experts who joined us for the discussion are Dr. Pawan Vats. He is Vice President Food Safety at Origa Research. Dr. Pawan Vats has over 35 years of experience in food safety and management systems. He has also been part of various programs on food safety. Then we have Dr. Saurabh Arora. He is the Managing Director at Origa Research. Dr. Saurabh Arora is also the founder of Food Safety Helpline. The presentation will provide you an information on how the Food Safety and Standards Act is different from the earlier laws on food, what all has been included in the definition of food, what are the requirements to be followed by the food business operators in compliance to food safety and implications on non-compliance. So here we have the video recording of the webinar.
Presenting this webinar in a question and answer kind of a format. We have been receiving a lot of questions through our website foodsafetyhelpline.com, and we've put them together into common questions, and I'll be asking these questions to Dr. Vats, and he'll be giving his expert opinion and trying to answer all of these questions for our attendees. So I hope everybody can hear us properly, and with that I'll get started. So the first question that we commonly get is that what is the food safety and excuse me, is that what is the Food Safety and Standards Act?
Dr. Saurabh, as you are aware, in our country, plenty of food laws and many regulatory bodies under these laws were in existence. Therefore, there was a need to converge all food laws and to have a single regulatory body. So this Food Safety and Standards Act 2007 came in existence. This Food Safety and Standards Act, this is an act which consolidates all the laws relating to food and to establish the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India for laying down science-based standards of food products, and also to regulate the manufacture, storage, distribution, transportation, sale and import of the food articles to ensure safe availability, to ensure availability of safe and wholesome food to the countrymen.
Thank you for that answer, sir. So it's basically covering everything related to food and ensuring safe food for our people. So moving to the next question, that why was this need for a new act? There were obviously laws and regulations in place even before this act came into force for controlling the quality of food and monitoring that. So why was there this need to have a new act altogether being enacted?
Actually, prior to this new Food Safety Standards Act, there are multiplicity of food laws. And in order to shifting of multi-level and multi-department control to single control, there was a need for the new law, and also to have a single reference point for all matters relating to food safety standards and enforcement. Earlier there were so many departments, so many controlling authorities, and everything was confused. So in order to remove all those problems, this act came into existence. Under the new act, this new act harmonized the standards with the international standards. No food business can be carried out without obtaining a license or registration, and provision for graded penalties has been introduced in the new act, and even the interest of the consumer has been taken care of in the new act.
So you talk about graded penalties. So what is can you elaborate a little bit on that? That is provision of graded penalties under the act.
Under the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act, even for a smaller offense, if moisture is found more than the prescribed limit, in that case also there was a penalty for imprisonment along with the fine. But under the new act, these penalties have been graded, and only monetary penalties are there for minor offenses like misbranded or substandard food. And if the food is found unsafe, in such cases, there is a provision for imprisonment along with the monetary fine.
So thank you for that answer. So we'll move on to the next question. So we've talked about other acts being now merged into this new act. So what are the prevalent laws which have now got merged into the Food Safety Act?
Before this new Food Safety Act, there are so many food laws related to food, like Prevention of Food Adulteration Act 1955, and also the Prevention of Food Adulteration Rules 1955, the Fruit Products Order 1955, the Milk and Milk Products Order 1992, which dealt with the production and sale distribution of milk and dairy products, then Meat Food Products Order, then again the Edible Oils Packaging Regulatory Orders, and 2-3 other more orders related to sale and distribution of oils were there. And even any order if issued under Essential Commodities Act relating to food, they all have been consolidated together under the new Food Safety Standards Act. And now whatever the Act rules and regulations I have mentioned, they all have been repealed out.
So what happens to the licenses if somebody was already licensed under one of these acts? What are they supposed to do now?
The food business operator who were already licensed or registered with the previous existing food laws, whether PFA or FPO or Milk and Milk Product Order, they are supposed to get it converted under the new Food Safety Standards Act license, and the date for that conversion is up to 4th February 2014.
Working with a lot of food businesses, other than these acts, we also have people who are under the ambit of AgMark. So what happened to AgMark? And all restaurants and all, they have their MCD or municipal license which is there. So those are not mentioned here. So what about these two?
No, they are very much in existence. Only 7 Act orders they have been repealed, or any other act or rule issued under the Essentials Commodity Act, they have been repealed. But the Municipality Act, they are still in existence. Even AgMark, that is also in existence. So all the compliance regarding Municipality Acts as well as AgMark, they have to follow. They have not been repealed.
All right. So coming to the next question. When you go through the act or any of the articles or announcements coming from the Food Safety Standards Authority, they keep on talking about food business operators and food businesses. So this is a new term which was not really there in the times of PFA and other acts. So what is the meaning of a food business operator and a food business?
Rahul, sorry, Dr. Saurav, with the passage of this new act, they have changed the name of the vendor. Now under the new act, a respectable name has been given who is dealing with the food. Earlier this was termed as vendor. Now they are called the food business operator. So the food business operator is that any person or any firm or company who is involved with the business of food is a food business operator.
That becomes a very broad description. So I think now practically everybody in the food chain is covered. So are the agriculture side, the farmers and those people are also covered under this?
Every food which is for human consumption except any substance which is for human consumption, that is covered under the food, but the drugs and cosmetics, the drugs are also consumed by the human, that has been excluded from the ambit of food. And the other, legally speaking, in terms of the Food Safety and Standards Act, food means any substance, whether processed, partially processed or unprocessed, which is intended for human consumption, that is food, and that includes genetically modified food, engineered food, food containing such ingredients in print food, packaged drinking water, alcoholic drink, chewing gum, and any substance including water used into the food during the manufacture, preparation or treatment. But it does not include any animal feed, live animals, unless they are prepared or processed for placing on the market for human consumption. Plants prior to harvesting. As I already informed, drugs and medicinal products, cosmetics, narcotics or psychotropic substances, they are not covered under food. So in the new Food Safety Standards Act, there is something new. Earlier the water was also excluded from the list of food product, but now the water used in the manufacture, processing of any food product, where it is one of the ingredients that is considered as to be the food, including the packaging, drinking water, packaged drinking water, this is also food.
Great. So that explains that basically everything post-harvest and for animal-based products after the animal has been prepared, yes, for right up to reaching us, everything is food, and anybody dealing with at any stage in a commercial transaction is a food business operator.
Yes, the food, as long as it is within the hands of the farmer in his field, it is not covered, but once it is in the market for sale, that is covered.
Thank you, sir. So now there is a big question mark on registration and licensing, and there's always a confusion, and a lot of questions that we get on the site foodsafetyhelpline.com are related to this, and they basically are two questions. Who needs a registration first? What is the registration? Who needs it?
Actually, the new Food Safety Standards Act says no food business can be carried out without obtaining a license or a registration. Now your question is very valid: who needs license and who needs registration? So the food business operator, they have been categorized in three categories. The one who are petty food business operator and whose turnover, annual turnover, is less than 12 lakh rupees, he has to obtain the registration. He is covered under the registration provision. And the others whose annual turnover is more than 12 lakh rupees per annum, he has to obtain the license.
Alright, so they've simplified it based on the turnover and I think the organization's capability. So people like petty food vendors and with lesser turnover, I think smaller shopkeepers don't need to go into that much of an extent, but larger businesses with bigger turnover have to go for a licensing. Alright, so that answers that question. Now, where can food business operators go and register themselves?
For registration, the state food commissioner, he notifies the authority, whether the state food safety officers or the municipality authorities has notified the commissioner of food safety, because the registration, who has to carry out this, this depends the job given by the food safety commissioner in individual states. So whatever, whosoever has been notified for registration in the particular state, he has to approach that.
So it is different for all states, or is there somebody generally that, okay, generally this department is there for most states for doing the registration and licensing?
Yes, Dr. Saru, as I told you, some states, they notify their food safety officer for this job for registration, and in some cases the state food safety commissioner can notify the municipalities or the local bodies working in the different part of the districts, they are empowered to do the registration.
So if somebody say is in Haryana and they want to find out where they go to get the registration done, where can they find this information?
They have to keep in touch with their state designated officer, his or licensing authority, and whether the food safety officer or the designated officer, he has to carry out the registration also, or the municipality has been authorized. This information can be had from their state designated officers. But as far as licensing is concerned, in that case, in the state, the district state designated officer, he is empowered to issue the license.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So that was my next question. So from where FBOs can get a license, and what is the difference between central and state licensing? That's also a big confusion.
Actually, this licensing is done at 2 stages. It also depends on the category of the food business operator. As I told you, the registration is up to 12 lakh rupees. If the turnover is up to 12 lakh rupees, he has to go for registration. If the turnover is more than 12 lakh rupees, then he has to go for state licensing. Again, the turnover category is there. In case of wholesaler or distributor, it is if the annual turnover is up to 20 crore rupees, but more than 12 lakh rupees, then he has to go for state licensing. If it is more than 20 crore rupees, then he has to go for central licensing. Similarly, for manufacturer also, if the turnover is more than 2 metric ton, he has to go for central licensing. If the annual turnover is up to more than 12 lakh rupees, but manufacturing capacity is below 2 metric ton, then he has to go for state licensing.
Alright. Thank you. Yeah, moving on to the next question. What is the procedure for registration?
Any food business operator who falls under the category of registration, he has to apply for registration in Form A. This Form A has been given in the licensing regulations, or he can obtain this Form A from and with the registration fee. For registration, it's a uniform for all. It is only 100 rupees as the registration fee. Then the application along with the fee of ₹100 in the form of demand draft or any form prescribed by the registering authority, along with the documents required with the registration, that is identity card or is a proof of any other identity. He has to apply for the registration, and after his complete application, the registration certificate is issued within 30 days. If he doesn't get any communication by that time, then he can continue his business, and he is deemed to be registered.
Okay, so I guess now it's a much simpler process, and I think this provision of assuming the license or registration being granted if no response is there for 30 days is a very good provision, and because nobody's business is going to get stopped. They can apply and keep on doing their business.
That's right. Okay, general the procedure is after filing the application for registration, the inspection is announced. If an inspection is carried out and if it is found okay, then registration is done, or if not, then it can be rejected, but he will be communicated whether his registration is granted or it is rejected. If he doesn't get any communication within 30 days, then he can start his business without waiting further.
So the next question is what is the procedure for licenses?
Similarly, for license also, he has to fill up an application, and for that purpose the form is B. along with the requisite license fee and the required documents. The list of documents is there in the licensing regulations. And after carrying out the inspection of the food business by the licensing authority, either the license is granted or rejected. But after receipt of application in all forms, within 16 days period, either the license is granted or rejected, and the food business operator, he has to be communicated in this regard. If he doesn't get any communication, then he can also start his business after completion of lapse of 60 days time.
All right. So here also it's the same thing, that he can apply for a license, and if there is no response, he can continue. But usually, do these inspections and all take place within this period? Or how is it happening nowadays in your experience?
But when the application for license is received by the licensing authority, the licensing application along with the document, it is scrutinized. If there is some fault or some document is not there, then he is informed and asked for that document. But once the application in all respect along with the documents is complete, then after that the license has to be issued within 60 days time, or it has to be rejected, whatever it is, this, including the licensing inspection of FBO also. So invariably license is issued only after carrying out the inspection.
All right. Thank you, sir. So another question that we've been frequently getting is that, okay, now I've got my license or I've got my registration, I had the inspection, everything went through, and I'm very happy and I'm back to business. So what are the conditions for maintaining the license? Does it just end with sending that application, or there's something I have to do after I get my license?
Actually, when the application for license is deposited with the licensing authority, one declaration is also given in the form of some affidavit or otherwise, that I shall be complying with all the requirements as mentioned in the Schedule 4 of the licensing regulation as applicable to him. He has already given an undertaking, so he has to comply with all the sanitary and hygienic requirements as mentioned in the Schedule 4 as applicable, as applicable to him, because this Schedule 4 that specifically separates sanitary and hygienic conditions for different type of food business. For street food vendors and who are covered under registration, there are separate list of sanitary and hygienic conditions. For other food business operators, for milk and milk product owners, separate set of sanitary and hygienic conditions are prescribed for them, and they have to comply with all the requirements specified in that. Besides that, there is a condition that the copy of the license has to be displayed in the premises permanently, and he has to allow the licensing authority to carry out the inspection in his premises. And after obtaining the license, if he carries out any change in his premises, then he has to intimate the licensing authority about the change or modification made. And the licensing, one of the licensing conditions is also there, that the manufacturing units, they have to employ the technical person, and the qualification for technical person has also been prescribed. There is another condition, that periodic annual return has to be submitted, and in case of milk and food business operator who was dealing with milk and milk products and doing manufacturing of milk and milk product, they have to submit 6 monthly annual return. These are some of the licensing conditions which they have to comply with. There are many more licensing conditions are there. they can manufacture or sell or distribute only those items for which they have been licensed.
They have to maintain all the
They have to maintain all the records of their sale,
purchase of raw materials,
purchase of raw materials, use of daily use of raw materials, and their production.
They have to
They have to, of course, they have to maintain all the sanitary and hygienic conditions. There is also one of the main and important licensing condition that they have to get their raw materials, their food products, chemically and microbiologically tested from the NABL lab at least once in 6 months. This is also one of the requirement of license. And the most important, the licensee shall buy the food material or the raw material and sell the food products only from or to licensed registered FBOs. That means if he procure any raw material, then he can procure that material from only the licensee or registry food business operator. If he is not licensed or he is not registered, he cannot purchase any raw material from him. And if the manufacturer he is further giving for distribution or supplying to his wholesaler or distributor, he must be licensed. And the distributor, if he further sends to the retailer must be licensed. So no food business can be carried out between two food business operators if they are not licensed. Of course, consumer, he can sell to the consumer, retailer can sell to the consumer. But if one food business operator is purchasing or selling to another food business operator, then they both should be licensed.
So besides worrying about our own license and registration, we also have to make sure that our supply chain, our suppliers and our further distributors, everybody is licensed. So it's not just limited to me that I've got my license and I'm good to go, but then I have to make sure that my suppliers and people, the other businesses buying from me, they are also licensed.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
All right. Thank you for that, sir. Now we'll move on to the next question. So everybody is worried about offences and penalties and what kind of things are going wrong and what kind of penalties people are being charged with. So in your experience, what are the most common kind of offences and what are the related penalties that are being enforced on food business operators?
Dr. Saurabh, as in the beginning I told you, in the earlier Prevention Food Adulteration Act, the penalty were not graded, and for every offence there was imprisonment along with the fine. But under the new act, the penalties are graded now. There are some of the offences for which only monetary penalty is there, and for some it's imprisonment plus fine. But in general, what we have seen, most of the food business operator, they are not complying with the labeling requirements. And I may say, even more than 50% of the samples found non-conforming violation of labeling requirements, whether they have not given the ingredients in the proper manner, or they have not mentioned the batch number, or they have not mentioned the color if added, they have not mentioned the food additive as required, as per in the manner in which it is required. So most of the cases found violating are of misbranded type. If there is some labeling defect, then it is misbranded. Then other are substandard. Substandard means if the food product is now not according to the standards laid down under the regulations. If it is not complying with the standards as laid down in the regulations, then it is substandard. If there is some labeling defect, then it is misbranded food. And for substandard food, the penalty, monetary penalty is up to ₹5 lakh. And if the food is found to be misbranded, that means violating some licensing, labeling provisions, then the penalty is up to 3 lakh rupees. And one thing is very important here, misleading advertisement. If somebody is misleading through the advertisement the consumers, then in that case it is taken very seriously, and in this case the penalty is up to 10 lakh rupees, monetary penalty up to 10 lakh rupees. And if the food is manufactured or processed under unhygienic conditions or unsanitary conditions, then the penalty is up to 1 lakh rupees. If the food business activity is carried out without a license or without a registration, then there is a separate set of penalties. And unsafe food. If food is found unsafe, which is injurious to health, in that case the penalty is very stringent. It is starting from imprisonment up to 6 months plus fine up to ₹1 lakh, and it is raising to imprisonment up to life imprisonment plus penalty of up to 10 lakh rupees. And one thing is also, if because of consumption of that food the consumer has suffered, then he has to pay the compensation also to the consumer, and compensation in case of injury or death of consumer, then not less than ₹5 lakh in case of death, and up to 3 lakh rupees in case of grievous injury, and up to ₹1 lakh in other cases of injury. So from this laws you can say this act takes care of the consumer also.
Yes, and I think it's good for the consumer, and also by removing the imprisonment and other things for a lot of other common kind of offences, it makes it friendly for the food business operators also as compared to the PFA. And I would like to highlight again, like Dr. Vats has said, that most of the cases that are there nowadays are related to labeling, which is very much in our control. And in fact, if you go to our website, Food Safety Helpline, we have an entire short course on food labeling. If you have got any interest in learning more about that, you can sign up for that course as well. It's a free 15-part course, and you can join it. So thank you. Now we'll move on to the next question. What are the penalties under the other provisions of the Act and rules?
There are also certain other offences under the Act. For example, if someone is carrying out the business without obtaining a license or registration, in that case, if he is entitled or he is eligible or he has to obtain the registration, but he is not getting the he is not getting himself registered, the penalty is fine up to 10 lakh rupees. If he falls under the category to obtain the license, then imprisonment up to 6 months plus fine up to 5 lakh rupees. And penalty for obstructing a food safety officer is also prescribed. If someone does not allow the food safety officer to do his job, he prevents him carrying out his job, then the penalty imprisonment up to 3 months plus a fine of ₹1 lakh is there. And if he gives false information to the food safety officer, then imprisonment up to 3 months plus a fine up to ₹2 lakh is there.
So I think they've pretty much covered all the different steps, right, from licensing, yes, inspections and everything, and defined the relevant penalties to make it very clear for the food business operators on what kind of risk they can face. So moving on to the next question. Is there any need for testing of food material under the Act?
Yes, under the licensing condition also, it's one of the requirements. It's a regulatory requirement. It is mandatory. Testing of food articles, raw materials, at least once every 6 months. And again, the water used in the manufacture or processing of any other food product and it is used as the one of the ingredient, then it has to be potable, and potable circuit he has to obtain. And that's Dr. Saurabh, as you know, this ISI standard is there, 10500.
Yes, sir.
Here, this potable water should be tested according to that. And other parameters for testing of these food articles are chemical, microbiological contaminants, nutritional composition, food additives, pesticide residue, and even packaging food materials. That can be also tested, because the packaging food material, that should also comply with the regulations of the food safety standards, packaging and labeling.
Great. So this has been defined in the Act as part of the requirement for maintaining the license.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, sir. Now going to the next. There's another question that people have is that can they go to any lab, or do they have to go to NABL accredited laboratories? So what is the role of accredited laboratories as defined under the Act?
Dr. Saurabh, in the earlier Prevention of Food Alteration Act, when any sample was picked up, the food safety officer, that sample was sent to state food laboratory, and only no private analysis by the private food laboratory was recognized by the government. Now the section 43 of the new act, that recognizes that the food products should be tested privately also, can be tested privately, but that should be, the lab should be NABL, accredited NABL lab. And there is a, the Food Safety Authority of India, they have notified around 70 or 68 food laboratories for that purpose. And even the food business operator, when sample is picked up, one of the counterpart, he can send for analysis. He can ask the food safety officer to send one counterpart of the sample of the lab of his own choice, but that should be NABL lab, and that should fall in the same state. For example, if the food safety officer of Delhi takes any samples, of course, one counterpart he will be sending to the state food laboratory, and the other counterpart, the food business operator, can ask the food safety officer to send the NABL lab, any NABL lab situated in Delhi. Many food laboratories, NABL food laboratories, has been notified of Delhi. You may be aware one of this lab is Arbro, the other maybe this is Shiran Test House or other.
Great, sir. So you mean to say that any lab that the food business operator is working with should be NABL accredited and also notified by the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. All right. Thank you, sir. Now we will go on to next part. So now we will be taking up your questions. I see a lot of questions have come in through the chat. While we open those questions and start taking them, I'll just quickly want to tell you about foodsafetyhelpline.com. So foodsafetyhelpline.com is a web portal which we've developed to give expert resources to all food business operators so they can understand and implement the Food Safety Act rules and regulations. Here we are regularly giving updates on any changes in the law, important dates, and any changes in, say there were changes in the labeling requirements, or they've finally given that last date is there, or also what is happening in other states. So we can preempt that similar implementations are going to happen in our region, and we together as people in the food business can work together to implement all of this. We also have a discussion forum here where food business operators can interact with our team of experts and also with each other. So we can all learn from each other's experience and successfully implement it. We regularly will be organizing webinars. This is in fact our first webinar that you are here attending. Thank you so much for that. And we'll also be giving online training courses on implementing specific aspects of the Food Act. So maybe like you might be wondering what kind of annual reports you want to do. So we'll be coming up with programs to help you do that. What aspects of Schedule 4 are applicable, the hygiene requirements. So we'll be making modules for all of them. Like we already have a course on food labeling which is there. It's a free course online, so you're welcome to join that. And like this, we'll be evolving this into a go-to portal for all food business operators to solve any problems they have. This has been initiated by two of our companies together, Arbro and Auriga. We're basically a FSSAI approved lab in Delhi, and we also have labs in Himachal Pradesh, Baddi, and in Bangalore, and other labs coming up which are all NABL accredited. And we're actually a team of more than 250 scientists working in food analysis, water analysis, working with pharma, healthcare, and we offer a complete solution. We do everything. You need your labels reviewed, you need nutritional analysis, toxins, contaminants, adulterants, microbiology, anything related to food testing for India or for exports, we do everything. So if you have any requirements, you're welcome to come through us on that. Now I've been able to open up your questions, and I see there are a whole lot of them. So the first question is from Hina, that FSSAI, FS Food Safety Act was laid down in year 2006, but it is not enforced till date. What actions are taken for enforcement of this act? Dr. Vats.
This act, rules and regulation, they have already come into force with effect from 5th August 2011. These are already in enforcement.
So it's more of a misconception that it's not being enforced.
Yes.
But we see this date, being extended every time. Now they said that it won't be extended. So I think a lot of people, laypersons especially, feel that it's not being implemented and it's being forwarded. So what is this date that has been constantly being moved ahead?
Actually, Food Safety Standards Act 2006, to give effect to the provisions of this act, rules were made, regulations were made, and they came into force with it from 5th August 2011. And the only extension for the provision of licensing, that has been extended because a lot of food business operators are there, and to convert the license issued under earlier act, some time frame was required. It could not be completed in time, and new documents, new requirement is there. And on the request of the food business operator, I feel this date has been extended so that every food business operator obtains the license or registration as required by him, and for that date, the date is final and fixed, that is 4th February 2014, and even on the website of the FSSAI, they have issued an advisory that they will not be further extended. And only this provision that has been extended, that it will be mandatory after 4th February 2014. Otherwise, all the provisions of Food Safety Act, rules and regulations are being implemented. If anybody is found selling substandard food, he is liable for prosecution or adjudication, whatever type of his offense is there. If any food product is found not conforming to the labeling standards, it is not labeled according to the regulations, then it is liable for adjudication, for imposing penalties and all that. So it is a wrong conception that it's not being implemented. It is very much being enforced.
So the act is being enforced. It's only that we food business operators have been given more time to get our license and registration.
Yes.
But rest everything is being enforced. Great. So we have a question from Mr. Desai here. It's a long question, but if I understand it, that he has a company which has a head office, corporate office, and it has a different business in different states. So he has got import licenses and central licenses for the different premises. So does he have to take a license for his corporate office also?
Yes, if he is operating in more than one state, then he has to obtain for his office. That will be in the form of some registration. But for other as per the manufacturing capacity, he has to obtain the license whether from the state or from the center, but he has to register his corporate office with the central licensing authority also.
All right. Another question from Mr. Mirza. He's asking that his annual turnover is 20 crores. So which license is for him, state or central?
How much turnover?
20 crores.
And in which business he is dealing?
Mr. Mirza, can you please share what business you are in? We'll need that information to answer your question.
What kind of business is doing? Because the turnover is different for different.
Okay.
For some, if it is more than 20 crores, then he has to go for central licensing, and for one category, it is 30 crores.
Okay. He is in wholesale retail.
For wholesale. For wholesaler, turnover more than 30 crore rupees per annum. He has to go for central license, and if the turnover is in between 12 lakh rupees and 30 crore per annum, then he has to obtain the state license.
Great. So I hope, Mr. Mirza, that answers your question. We'll be going to the next question. This is from Mr. Singh. He's asking that does shrink wrap, cling wrap articles in packets closed with rubber band string need labeling as per FSSAI? So I think maybe like he has breads which are in shrink wrap, or there's some namkeen or something which is giving in plastic packets with the rubber string. So does it need to be labeled as per FSSAI requirements?
He has to see the definition of packaging. If it is covered under the packaging definition, then definitely all information has to be given on the label. And for packaging, if it cannot be taken out without tempering the packaging, then it is a package. And if it is open, then it is not covered as a packaging. But packaging, if without tempering the package, contents is taken out, that is not a package. But if some tempering has to be done to take out the material, then it is a package, then it is covered under packaging. So rubber band, though it's not clearly defined in the FSSR, but what I feel, and from certain advisories on this issue, if it is rubber band, rubber band is there, and without tempering the rubber band, you cannot take out something, so it should be labeled.
Great. We have a question. I think this is from Ankush Kumar. He is, I think, a consumer. So he's asking from a consumer perspective, what are the things we can keep in mind while eating in fast food chains and food restaurants in order to ensure the safety of the food we are eating from a consumer's perspective?
He wants to know what kind of food.
So he wants to know,
I do not follow.
like if he's going to a restaurant, so what can he keep in mind, or maybe look out for to make sure that the food that he's getting is safe?
First, he has to see the overall sanitary and hygienic conditions of the premises where he is entering and where he is eating the food. The other thing, the service person who are serving the food to him, he has to see the sanitary hygienic condition of those persons, whether their nails trimmed, their hand washed, cleaned. Then he should also see whether the hand washing facility is there. Then the other thing, the equipments or the cutlery, plates, whether they are chipped or clean, and this thing. And the other thing, he should see the food material which is served to him. It is not foul smelling, it is not decomposed or rotten, or this thing only as a consumer in the eating house, he can see all these things which are visible to him. Otherwise, he cannot enter his kitchen and there
And also, I think
but
the license should
yes,
be displayed.
yes, from the surroundings, from where he is sitting, from the after seeing the food and overall hygienic condition, on the basis of that, he can choose the restaurant or place or food of his choice.
Great. Moving on to another question. This is from Mr. Agarwal. So, Mr. Pradeep Agarwal is saying that they have branches in various locations. So, do they need to take separate license for each state, as they are having turnover of more than 20 crores in some locations and less than 20 crores in some states? Please suggest.
Different license for different premises. Whether they all premises are within the same state or in different state, it hardly matters. And for each premises, the criteria should be followed as mentioned in the schedule, and the advisory issued by the Food Safety Authority of India. If the turnover is false under the category to be license to be taken from the central, then he has to approach there. If not, then in the state. So different license for different premises.
Okay, so they have to take a license for each of the premises. Okay, great.
Yes.
Question from Mr. Patel, Samir Patel. If a product is in use and approved by FSSAI, still a product approval, registration and licensing is required. So I think he means to say that if there is a product which is already approved for someone else and they want to introduce that product, do they still need to go have a product approval and licensing?
For that purpose, he has to follow the guidelines issued in regard of product approval by the FSSAI, but I am of the view he has to obtain the product approval which he wants to manufacture himself. Not if someone else has taken the approval, it is not applicable for him.
Okay. One question from Mr. Gupta. He's asking that is this Food Act applicable to animal feed and feed supplements?
Feed supplement or
Feed
food
supplement.
supplement?
He's talking, I think, specifically about animal feed and feed supplement.
I think he is talking about animal feed only. So it is not covered. Animal feed is not covered under FSSAI.
Great. So another question. This is from Dr. Sadhna Kulkarni. She's asking, will this also be applicable to imported commercial diets or manufactured in India with formula from abroad? So are the provisions of the Act applicable to imported products?
Anybody wants to import any food article, he has to obtain the license for import and get from the central licensing authority. And every food article which is imported into India, they should comply with all the standards, Indian standards. As far as labeling is concerned, one of the language used of the imported food articles
Food article should either be English or Hindi.
and
And the other requirements, whatever required in India, all are required for the imported food also. The imported food that should fully comply with the rules and regulation of our country.
I would also like to add here is that, if you look at just over the past few months since Diwali, literally thousands of crore worth of imported food product is lying on the ports. It's not being cleared because it's not meeting our requirements. So I think on the imported products, the enforcement is very strict, and the steps are being taken very strongly to make sure that at least what is coming into our country is of perfect quality and meeting our standards.
And Dr. Sarao, I again tell you, most of the substance which are lying there, they are because they are not properly labeled. And if the food substance which is imported into India, if it is not labeled properly, even the sample is not taken and it is sent for analysis, right away it is asked to send it back.
Very true, because they must be following labeling requirements according to their
Yes.
country. Though they now need to follow what is prescribed here.
Yes.
Okay, we have a question from Rajni, she's asking what happens to street chaat walas selling and chaat vendors, street food vendors.
Street food vendors, they have to get themselves registered and they have to follow the sanitary and hygienic conditions as required under Schedule 4, particularly mentioned for street food vendors.
Right.
There is a separate set of sanitary and hygienic conditions for street food vendors.
Yeah, and they all have to get registrations done.
Yes.
And here also again I like to add, in fact the Bureau of Indian Standards has actually come up with the complete specifications of hygiene requirements for street food vendors, which is being evaluated, and education programs will be carried out to train all of these street food vendors and bring them up to a level so that they can really meet our requirements. In fact, I personally feel street food is really one of a kind of a backbone of our food and our culture. So we can't punish them in any way. We only have to support them and embrace them to bring them up to this level. So I think we have got maybe 50 more questions there. We'll not be able to answer all of these questions. We are out of time now. We only have about 2 minutes left. So I'll take a couple of questions. And one question I'm getting very frequently is that will a copy of this presentation be available? So yes, the entire webinar has been recorded and it will be uploaded on our website foodsafetyhelpline.com, and we'll be sending out links to everybody who attended so that you can go and see this webinar anytime. So if you join later during the presentation, you can see it right from the beginning. So one last question we'll take up. But this is again from Mr. Desai. If importer license is on head office address, does he still need to obtain separate head office license?
If he is storing the imported food articles at the same place, then only one license will do. If his office is at one place and he is storing the food articles at some other place, then for the storage of the food articles, whether imported or other one, he has to take another license.
All right. So that was the last question and we are running just on time. I thank you all so much for attending, and all of any more questions you have, please send us mails. There is a ask a question tab on foodsafetyhelpline.com. We try and answer as many questions as we can. If you need any specific help or details, we also have consulting services with Dr. Vats. He can help you out and really come and meet you and solve your problems with your team. And you can get in touch anything you need. We'll be keeping you posted for more such events in the future. So thank you, Dr. Vats. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure everybody is enriched and we know a lot more about the Act. And we thank you for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you, Dr. Saurabh.